This is TWiT.
Marcus Hutchins, also known as MalwareTech, he's a cybersecurity researcher who you may remember helped to stop the Wannacry ransomware code in its tracks when it blanketed the world this May. And now it appears he's in FBI custody. Joining us to talk about this is Iain Thomson from The Register. How's it going, Iain?
Well, it's been one hell of a day, certainly. It's ups and downs, quite literally. I mean, it started off with the news that he'd been arrested, and immediately the supposition was that this was in some way related to the Wannacry thing, and the FBI got the wrong end of the stick. And then at lunchtime, you know, I was calling around prisons at the time, or jails, trying to find out where they were holding him. And then we got a statement from the DOJ saying, actually, he's in FBI custody and he's been charged with creating malware in 2014 and selling it online. So he's basically gone from hero last week to zero this week. I mean, obviously, the presumption is that he always has the presumption of innocence.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the FBI generally don't pull a move like this unless they're pretty sure of their facts. And based on the deposition, they are very, very sure of their facts.
So tell us a little bit about Marcus Hutchins. I mean, I know I've heard the name. I know we talked about him briefly when Wannacry, you know, when it seemed like he happened to stumble upon a kill switch for Wannacry. So everybody kind of heard his name a little bit then. What is his reputation outside of that prior to Wannacry? Has it been as a white hat hacker or?
Oh yes, I mean I've been viewing conversations that he was working with other security people and was quite, you know, well respected within the field. I mean, he was doing pro bono work on security. He obviously knew his stuff. He's been active pretty much since he came of age, and reasonably well known within the industry, but very low profile outside of the industry until Wannacry came up. And then when that happened, I started talking with him, and he was just a bit freaked out because he got press camping outside his door. He didn't know how to deal with the attention, so we gave him some advice and the rest of it. And then last week, he was at DefCon. He was attending all the parties. He was having selfies taken with him, hiring Lamborghinis, flying through the Grand Canyon, shooting off guns left, right, and center in ranges.
Obviously, in ranges, good.
Oh, yes. I know this is America, but you go to a shooting range, unless you're somewhere in Montana and you have some nice open spaces.
Right.
But yeah, no, he was doing, I mean, I've done it myself. It's the standard tourist thing to do in Vegas,
sure.
You know. Particularly if you're a Brit and you have no experience with these things, go pew, pew, pew in a gun range. It's all good fun. But, I mean, he was obviously having the time of his life. He was due to fly back today. Nearly one of the last things he tweeted was talking about how stupid priority seatings were on airlines. And then he just went dead silent. So, and then the news came. He got the news out through a friend that he'd been arrested, and he's currently sitting. As far as we're aware, he's just. I think at 3 p.m. he was down in court, so that he could be formally charged. But he's going to be spending quite a lot longer time in the US than he would have thought at the time. It's kind of shocking because he was generally. It was just. I mean, and this was something which came up at the show. He was nominated for a Pony Award for his research and just missed out on it. But, you know, this was a guy who people actually looked up to and still do, because, I mean, the stuff he did with Wannacry was very good, and the FBI may have got its facts wrong, this one. So we can't prejudge, but it's not looking great, certainly. There are a number of things which look curious, let's just say that. There was because the ransomware they created was called Kronos. It was an offshoot of Zeus, if you like, which was one of the big banking Trojans. And he's accused by the FBI, or of his colleague is accused by the FBI, of putting up a how to use the Kronos banking Trojan video on YouTube. And on the very same day, Marcus was asking if anyone had got any samples of Kronos. Now, that could just be a coincidence, but it's a slightly odd one. So, you know, as like I said, we shouldn't prejudge this, but it doesn't look good.
Well, I mean, why would he be asking for a sample if he was the one that created it?
Well, you're generally looking to generate buzz around a particular. I mean, there's so many families of malware out there. If you're actually looking to generate buzz around it, you make it look like security researchers are into it, or it may. I mean, it may just have been coincidence, or it may have been sort of laying the groundwork for an alias later on. So it was just really curious timing, going out exactly the same day that video came out.
Well, it reminds me of how Ross Ulbricht was caught, right? I mean, they finally tracked down that he was posting, before the Silk Road went up, he was posting like, "Hey, you guys, has anyone checked out the Silk Road?" And they finally, traced that back to him. So I guess it's a common thing to try to pretend.
The desire to blow your own trumpet and also to drive traffic. I mean, according to the indictment, they were selling this off for $2,000 to $3,000 a copy of the malware. And from research that we'd done in 2014, this was actually quite advanced stuff, because you could buy for $1,000, you could buy a limited sample of the malware just so you could check it out yourself and make sure it worked. And then for additional money, they would provide add-on software modules or change the file slightly so that it would evade signature engines on antivirus detectors. I mean, the Kronos malware was a very, very sophisticated piece of malware for its time. So it would be incredibly disappointing if Marcus was one of the people behind this. We're just going to have to see how the trial comes out at the moment.
Now, the timing is also very coincidental in the fact that Alphabay, which is a dark web marketplace, was seized by the FBI last month. Do you have a feeling that this is completely related to that? This is where, as far as I know, Kronos, at least one of the places that it was being sold.
Yes, it was being sold on Alphabay. We were discussing this earlier in the office. I'm kind of skeptical just because of the timing of it. Because the indictment was filed on July 12th, and Alphabay didn't go down until July 14th. But, and there's a big but in this, the site was having problems before that. Up to sort of 6 days before it was actually taken down by the feds. People were reporting problems logging in, problems logging out, that the site was up and down like Syrian Empire. I mean, it was all over the place. So it could have been that they found some evidence when they were doing the initial hacking round in the site before taking it down, and were able to link that to Marcus and this as yet unnamed co-conspirator. So, I mean, they could be related, but I'd like to see more evidence before I call the ball on that, definitely.
I have heard some suspicion that Marcus might have been one of the creators of Wannacry, and that's how he was able to stop it. What do you think of that?
Again, something we've discussed, and again, I'd need to see some very convincing evidence, because the Wannacry, one of the key things behind Wannacry is that it was developed, the language used within the code is Russian. And as far as I know, he doesn't speak Russian. Now, he is, according to the FBI, working with an unnamed co-conspirator whose name has been redacted out of the documents. That person may be Russian, and he may have collaborated on it. But I think it's unlikely for a couple of reasons. Firstly, he would be drawing an enormous amount of attention to himself for something which he actually committed. And that is fraught, because it's... Take, for example, if there's a murder, the first people who are investigated by the police are family and spouses, because 90% of murders are committed by family and spouses. The first thing malware antivirus and security researchers do is look at the provenance of a piece of malware and who reported it, and just make sure that there's no linkage between there. So it would be a very, very high risk move. And plus, he seemed genuinely unprepared for the amount of attention that he got afterward, after this kicked off. So I suspect what was happening is he was familiar with how malware worked. He went into how it worked, and he found a solution. He found a server that could be used for a domain which could be used for the kill switch. I think it's unlikely, but it's not outside the realms of possibility. It just seems a little to fit a little too well. And as a journalist, you're always very suspicious of stories which seem too good to be true.
But he was, I mean, did you know him previously as MalwareTech or as Marcus Hutchins? Because he was doxxed by the Daily Telegraph, right? I mean, nobody knew, or did you know his name? I mean, you don't have to reveal that.
No, I mean, you work entirely through handle names. So, and yeah, he was treated quite appallingly by the British press. But such is the way. I mean, basically, the way it works is a journalist is told, go and find this person, or your next review is going to be unpleasant. So they use some journalists will use any means possible to actually do it. But yeah, I mean, he had the press camping outside his door. He had, this is a guy whose name was not out in public circulation. His proper real name was not out in public circulation. So he was very much outed by the press, which again I think mitigates against him being one of the authors of Wannacry. That said, I could be completely wrong. It wouldn't be the first time.
Well, in my novel version of this story, he is. But that's fictional.
That's fiction. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's the kind of thing Hollywood would love. Yeah, but
well,
that's one of the reasons.
And I think we're going to find out a little more information as the day goes on. I think there's going to be some sort of an announcement or whatever, was what I had last read right before coming into here. So I'm sure we'll hear more by day's end, which means that if you're watching or listening to this a little bit after this, you might be able to read up on it, but we could tell you a little bit more about that on tomorrow's show. But Iain Thomson from The Register, thanks for coming on the show and sharing your insight on this. We really appreciate it. We're happy you made it back from Vegas safe.
Oh, you and me both. Safe, sunburnt, and slightly sweaty, but that's as far as it goes.
All right, take care, Iain. We'll talk to you soon.
Cheers. Have a good day.
Bye.